The distress signal had been broadcasting for 72 hours when Captain Zara finally accepted that no one was coming. Her purple skin had lost its usual shimmer, and her 4 arms hung limp at her sides as she floated in the command center of the Eternal Dawn. Around her, the all-female crew of the Karathi vessel moved slowly, trying to conserve their remaining oxygen. The asteroid storm had come out of nowhere. Hidden behind a radiation cloud, it had struck their ship before their sensors could detect it. Now they drifted in the empty space between star systems with massive holes in their hull and most of their systems offline. 43 souls aboard and less than 10 hours of breathable air remaining. Commander Lyra pushed herself through the bridge doorway, her silver eyes meeting Zara's with grim understanding. "The crew knows," she said quietly. "They are preparing themselves for the end." Zara nodded slowly. The Karathi were an ancient race, proud and sophisticated. They had been traveling the stars for thousands of years. Their technology was among the most advanced in the known galaxy. Yet here they were dying slowly in the cold darkness because they had ventured too far from the safe routes. A sudden beeping from the communication console made everyone turn. Lieutenant Vara rushed to the station, her elongated fingers dancing across the controls. "Captain, we are receiving a response to our distress signal. That is impossible," Zara said, moving closer. "We are 3 light years from the nearest trade route." "No one travels through this sector." Vara checked the readings again, her antennae twitching with confusion. "The signal is real. Captain, A ship is approaching us. It will reach us in approximately 20 minutes. "What kind of ship?" Lyra asked. "Is it Altarian?" "Perhaps a Nexus patrol vessel." Vara shook her head slowly, her expression becoming even more confused. "It is human." The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew about humans. They were the newest species to achieve faster than light travel, having only left their home system 200 years ago. By galactic standards, they were children playing with technology they barely understood. Their ships were ugly constructions of metal and ceramic held together by what looked like hope and determination. "They are actually coming here," Zara said in disbelief. "Humans were known for many things, but mostly for being completely insane. They took risks no sensible species would consider. They explored regions others had marked as death zones. They fought wars over ideas rather than resources. And strangest of all, they would risk their lives for complete strangers. The human vessel is requesting permission to dock," Captain Vara announced. Zara looked at her remaining crew. These proud Karathi warriors and scientists were about to be rescued by a species they had always considered primitive. It was humiliating, yet it was also their only chance at survival. "Grant them permission," Zara commanded. "Tell them about our situation. They need to know what they are getting into." 20 minutes later, the airlock alarm sounded. The inner door opened and a single human stepped through. She was small, even by human standards, with brown hair tied back in a practical style and wearing a patched spacesuit that looked older than she was. The human removed her helmet and smiled at the assembled aliens. "Hi there," she said cheerfully, as if she was not standing in a dying ship surrounded by desperate aliens. "Names: Katie Murphy. I run a mining operation about 50 light years from here. Picked up your distress call while I was hauling ore. You came 50 light years to answer our signal," Lyra asked incredulously. "That must have taken you days," Katie shrugged, setting down a large bag of equipment. 3 days, actually. But your signal said you had kids aboard. Could not exactly ignore that." Could I? Zara felt something shift in her chest. There were indeed 5 younglings aboard, ranging from equivalent human ages of 6 to 12. They were the daughters of crew members being transported to an educational facility. The thought of them dying here had been the worst part of this nightmare. "We have 43 crew members," Katie Murphy, Zara said. "Formally, our life support is failing. We have lost main power. Our hull has multiple breaches. We estimate less than 10 hours of air remain." Katie nodded, pulling out a scanner that looked like it had been repaired with tape multiple times. "Okay. First things first, we need to get your power back online. Everything else depends on that. Where is your engine room deck?" 7, Lyra said. But our entire engineering team has tried. The power core was damaged in the impact. The magnetic field generators are completely misaligned. It would take weeks in a shipyard to repair. Katie grinned the expression that seemed inappropriate given their situation. Good thing I am not a shipyard. Then I am just a stubborn human with a toolbox. Lead the way. Zara assigned Vara to guide the human to the engine room while she returned to the bridge. She watched on the monitors as Katie crawled into maintenance shafts that were never designed for repair while the ship was in space. The human seemed to have no fear working without safety lines, in areas where one wrong move would mean death, Captain. We are receiving another signal, Lyra announced. This time from a Galactic Council patrol ship. They are asking if we require assistance. Zara almost laughed. They are 8 days away at maximum speed. Tell them we appreciate their concern, but a human is already here. There was a pause on the other end. Then the patrol ship responded. Confirm previous transmission. Did you say a human is attempting repairs on a Karathi vessel? Confirmed, Zara replied. The patrol ship's next message was simple and concerning. We are increasing speed to maximum. Please try to survive until we arrive. Zara wondered if they were racing to rescue them or to witness the impossible sight of a human fixing technology that was millennia more advanced than anything from Earth. She turned back to the monitors where Katie was now doing something with what appeared to be wire and some kind of adhesive tape. The human was singing something in her own language as she worked, seeming completely at ease in the dying ship. It was the most unusual rescue Zara had ever witnessed. The power was back, but their problems were far from over. Katie stood in the breach zone looking at the massive holes in the hull through her helmet display. The temporary force fields were failing, and each failure meant more air lost to space. How long do the force fields have? Zara asked, standing beside her in an environment suit. Maybe an hour. Katie replied, checking her scanner. 2 at most. We need to patch these holes properly, or the ship will not make it to the station. But we have no hull, plating, Vara said. Our cargo bay was breached. All repair materials were lost. Katie turned to look at the assembled crew. Want to know a secret about humans? We are really good at improvising. She pointed to the debris floating outside the ship. That stuff that hit you was not just rocks. There is metal out there from old ships that got caught in the asteroid field. We are going to use it. You want to go outside and collect debris? Lyra asked. That is suicide. The radiation levels are lethal. Katie tapped her suit. Not in this baby. This suit has kept me alive through solar flares and radiation storms. It is ugly, but it works. Besides, we do not have a choice. She moved to the airlock before anyone could stop her. The Karathi watched in amazement as the small human pushed out into space with nothing but a tether line and her ancient-looking suit. She began grabbing pieces of metal, examining each one, before either attaching it to her line or pushing it away. Inside, Sierra and the other younglings pressed against the windows watching Katie work. The human moved through space like she was born there, using small bursts from her suit thrusters to navigate between debris. She is not afraid, Sierra said to her mother. How is she not afraid? Zara, who was also Sierra's mother, placed 2 of her arms around her daughter. Perhaps humans do not feel fear the same way we do, or perhaps they simply ignore it when necessary. Katie had collected several large pieces of metal and was now pulling them back to the ship. She had to stop twice to catch her breath. The radiation was affecting her despite the suit's protection, but she kept going back inside. She immediately got to work. She did not have welding equipment that would work on the Karathi hull material, but she had something else. Her mining charges were designed to break apart asteroids, but with some modification they could be used to fuse metal together. This is going to be loud, Katie warned as she placed the first piece of salvaged metal over a hull breach. Everyone might want to cover their ears. The explosion was controlled but still shook the entire section. Katie examined her work and nodded. The metal had fused with the hull, creating an ugly but solid patch. She moved on to the next breach. The younglings had followed her and were watching from a safe distance. Katie noticed them and smiled. You kids want to help? They chittered excitedly, and Katie handed them rolls of her tape. Show me where you see any cracks or holes, smaller than your hand. We will seal those while I work on the big one, Sierra translated, and soon all 5 younglings were carefully applying tape to small breaches. Their mothers watched nervously but did not intervene. They could see that having a task was keeping the children from panicking. Katie worked for another 2 hours patching hull breaches with salvaged metal and explosive charges. It was dangerous, crude work that would have horrified any proper engineer, but it was working. The air pressure was stabilizing. Then she noticed something that made her stop. A section of the ship near the medical bay was showing strange readings on her scanner. The metal. There was not just damaged, it was being eaten away. What is that? Katie asked, pointing to the spreading corrosion. Lyra checked the ship's database acid damage from the asteroids. Some of them contained a corrosive compound. It is eating through the hull. How fast at the current rate it will breach through in approximately 30 minutes. Katie ran to the section and saw the problem. The acid was spreading like a living thing, consuming the metal and growing stronger. She had seen something similar in the asteroid mines where certain chemicals would react with metal. I need something basic to neutralize it, Katie said, thinking fast. What do you have that is extremely alkaline? We have medical supplies, Vara suggested. But nothing designed for this. Katie ran to the medical bay and started going through supplies. She found what she was looking for in the most unlikely place. The Karathi food synthesizer used a highly basic compound to process certain nutrients. She grabbed several containers and ran back to the corroding hull. Without hesitation, she poured the compound directly onto the acid. The reaction was immediate and violent, producing a foam that filled the corridor, but the corrosion stopped. That was our food supply for the next week, Lyra said. Better than losing the medical bay. Katie replied, already moving to patch the damaged section. Would you rather be hungry or dead? The ship shuddered again and warning lights flashed throughout the corridors. They were passing through the debris field that had damaged them before, and more impacts were possible. We need to get the shields back online, Katie said, but Zara shook her head. The shield generators were completely destroyed. There is no way to repair them. Katie thought for a moment, then smiled. That big brain of yours is overthinking things. We do not need shields. We need to not get hit. She headed for the bridge. On the bridge, Katie studied the navigation console, then started entering commands. The crew watched confused as she began plotting a course that seemed random. What are you doing, Vara? Asked Katie, pointed to the screen. See these debris patterns? They are not random. They follow the gravitational currents from that dead star over there. If we ride the current instead of fighting it, we can slip through without getting hit. That is impossible, Lyra said. The calculations alone would take hours. Katie shrugged and started flying manually. No calculations needed, just instinct. Watch, she took control of the ship and began piloting through the debris field. The Karathi held their breath as massive asteroids passed within meters of their hull, but Katie seemed to know exactly where each one would be. She was not calculating, she was feeling the rhythm of space. 20 minutes later, they were clear. The crew stood in stunned silence as Katie handed control back to the regular pilot. How did you do that? Zara asked. Katie grinned. Humans are really good at pattern recognition. We see patterns everywhere even when they are not really there. Sometimes that is a weakness, but sometimes it saves your life. An alarm sounded from the engine room. The power core was fluctuating again. Katie's repairs were starting to fail under the strain. I will handle it, Katie said, but she swayed on her feet. She had been working for 6 hours straight, and the radiation exposure was taking its toll. You need rest, Zara said. You are exhausted. Katie shook her head. Cannot rest yet. If that core fails, we all die. She stumbled toward the engine room but collapsed in the corridor. The younglings ran to her. Sighed, and Sierra pressed her small hands against Katie's face. She is burning with fever, Mother Sierra said to Zara. She gave too much. Zara made a decision that went against every protocol. Carry her to the medical bay, and someone get me her tools. We will finish what she started. The Karathi crew looked at their captain in shock. They were going to attempt to maintain human repairs on their own ship. It was unthinkable, but Katie had shown them that sometimes unthinkable was exactly what survival required. Katie woke in the medical bay to find 5 young alien faces staring at her. She tried to sit up, but gentle, 4 armed hands pushed her back down. "Rest, Katie Murphy," Zara said from beside the bed. "You have radiation poisoning and exhaustion. Our medical systems are treating you, but you need time." "The ship," Katie said weakly. "The power core is holding thanks to your repairs and our maintenance," Lyra said. "We have been following your example using the tape and wire to reinforce weak points." Katie managed a weak smile. "You are learning that perfect is not always necessary." Sierra stepped forward holding something in her small hands. "We made this for you," she said shyly. It was a bracelet woven from strips of metal tape, the same tape Katie had used to save their ship. The other younglings gathered around, each having contributed to the gift. Katie felt tears in her eyes as she accepted the bracelet. "That is the nicest thing anyone has ever made for me." "Thank you." A sudden jolt ran through the ship, and alarms began sounding. Vara rushed into the medical bay. "Captain, we have a problem." "Pirates?" Katie forced herself to sit up despite the pain. "Pirates out here. 3 ships," Vara confirmed. "They must have been monitoring our distress signal, waiting for us to be weak enough to board. They are demanding we surrender our ship and all valuable technology." The Karathi crew looked defeated. They had survived the asteroids and the system failures only to face pirates now. They had no weapons, no shields, and no way to run. Katie swung her legs off the bed. "How long until they reach us?" 15 minutes, Zara said. "But you are in no condition to fight." Katie laughed weakly. "Good thing I am not planning to fight then. Help me to the communication console." They supported her to the bridge where the pirate ships were visible on the screen. They were typical pirate vessels cobbled together from stolen parts and bristling with weapons. The lead ship was already sending boarding pods. "Let me talk to them," Katie said. Zara hesitated, then opened the channel. "This is Katie Murphy of the human mining vessel. Lucky strike." Katie said, her voice stronger than her body. "Currently aboard the Karathi ship Eternal Dawn. I am claiming salvage rights under human maritime law." There was silence, then laughter from the pirate commander. "A single human thinks she can claim a Karathi vessel as salvage. That is amusing." Katie grinned, though the pirates could not see it. "Check your databases." About 3 years ago, a human named Margaret Chen claimed salvage rights on a derelict Altarian dreadnought. When pirates tried to take it from her, she activated the self-destruct and took out 2 pirate cruisers. The Salvage Guild backed her claim posthumously. The laughter stopped. "Have rigged this entire ship with mining charges," Katie continued. "It was not entirely a lie. She did have some charges left. If you attempt to board, I will detonate them. You will get debris, not technology. You are bluffing," the pirate commander said, but uncertainty had crept into his voice. Katie asked. "Scan the ship. You will see explosion damage all over the hull from where I have been using charges for repairs. Do you really think a crazy human who flew 3 days through radiation to answer a distress call would not blow herself up to spite you?" The pirates were quiet for a long moment, scanning the ship. They would indeed see the explosion marks from Katie's hull repairs. The commander spoke again. "Even if you destroy the ship, we still outnumber you." "True," Katie agreed. "But here is the thing about humans. We are vindictive. I have already transmitted your position and ship signatures to every human mining station and freight company in 3 sectors. You just threatened a ship with human salvage claim. That means every human ship for 1,000 light years now has your description. So what, so humans hold grudges?" Katie said simply. "You might destroy us here, but you will never be able to dock at any station where humans trade, never be able to buy supplies from any human merchant, never be able to travel through any system where humans patrol. We will make your existence a living hell just because we can." She paused to let that sink in, then continued. "Or you can leave now, and this all gets forgotten. Your choice." The bridge was silent as everyone waited. Zara watched the human woman barely able to stand, but still threatening 3 pirate ships with nothing but words and reputation. The pirate ships began to turn away. "Is not overhuman," the commander said. Katie collapsed back into the chair as soon as the channel closed. Looking forward to it, she whispered. The pirates jumped to hyperspace and were gone. The bridge erupted in cheers, but Katie was focused on something else. The strain of the confrontation had caused several of her patches to fail again. We need to reinforce those sections, Katie said, trying to stand, but her legs would not support her. Sierra and the other younglings ran forward. We can do it, Katie. We watched you teach us, Katie. Looked at these young aliens who had been so frightened just hours ago. Now they were ready to save their own ship. She nodded. Okay, but be careful and use lots of tape. The younglings scattered throughout the ship with tape and determination. While they worked, the adults continued to monitor systems and follow Katie's earlier example of creative problem-solving. Vara had taken apart 3 non-essential consoles to get parts for the navigation system Lyra was using, medical supplies to create a chemical reaction that produced heat for the failing environmental systems. Even Zara was on her hands and knees, all 4 sets of them splicing cables together with the crude techniques Katie had demonstrated. 4 hours later, they received a transmission from the Galactic Council patrol ship. They were still 2 days away, but wanted an update. We are stable, Zara reported. The human repairs are holding. There was a pause. Did you say the repairs are holding? The human actually fixed a Karathi vessel. Not just the human, Zara said proudly. She taught us we are maintaining our own ship now. Another pause. We are forwarding this to the council. They will want a full report, Katie, who was listening from the medical. Bay smiled weakly. Tell them the report is simple. Sometimes the best solution is the ugly one that works. The ship continued its journey toward the station. It was battered, patched with salvaged metal, and held together with duct tape and determination. But it was flying, and everyone aboard was alive. Katie watched from her bed as young Sierra carefully applied tape to a small crack in the medical bay wall. The youngling was focused completely on her task, doing exactly as Katie had taught her. No, Katie said softly. Your people are going to develop a whole new branch of engineering because of this. Sierra looked up confused. What do you mean? Katie smiled. I mean that sometimes knowing how to fix something perfectly is less important than knowing how to fix it right now. Your people have forgotten that because your technology is so advanced, but you are remembering it now. Mother says you saved us all. Sierra said. Katie shook her head. I just gave you the tools, you saved yourselves as the station finally came into view. Katie felt a deep satisfaction. The mighty Karathi ship looked like it had been through hell because it had. But it had survived, and its crew had learned something valuable. Sometimes being a little bit human was exactly what the galaxy needed. Orbital Station 7 came into view like a jewel in space, its lights promising safety and proper repairs. The Eternal Dawn limped toward it, held together by human ingenuity and alien determination. The station control was already hailing them. Eternal. Dawn, this is Station Control. We show massive damage to your vessel. Immediate docking authorization granted. Bay 12 has been cleared for emergency arrival. Zara responded with relief in her voice. Acknowledged, Station Control. We are coming in. On minimal power, requesting assistance. Katie watched from a viewport in the medical bay as they approached. She had recovered somewhat from the radiation poisoning, but was still weak. The Karathi medical technology had helped, but human bodies were not designed for the kind of punishment she had put hers through. As they docked, Katie could see crowds gathering on the station. News of their survival had spread. A Karathi vessel saved by a human was unprecedented. The various species on the station pressed against the observation windows trying to get a glimpse of this impossible sight. We should prepare you for departure, Zara said, entering the medical bay. Your ship is also docked here. You can return to your normal life. Katie looked at the captain, who had become something like a friend over the past day. Normal was never really my thing anyway. The airlock opened and station medical teams rushed in. They stopped in shock when they saw the repairs. Duct tape was everywhere holding panels, in place sealing cracks and even wrapping around critical components. The explosion marks from the hull patches made the ship look like it had been in a war. The station chief, a tall Altarian with blue crystalline skin, approached Zara, who performed these repairs before Zara could answer. Katie stood up with effort, wobbling slightly. That would be me. Katie Murphy, human miner and part-time miracle worker. The station chief studied her for a long moment. You used explosive charges to weld hull patches when you do not have proper tools, you improvise. Katie replied, and this adhesive material duct tape, greatest human invention after coffee. The chief turned to his team. Scan everything. Document every repair method. This could revolutionize emergency protocols. Across the galaxy, as the crew began to disembark, the younglings refused to leave Katie's side. They had appointed themselves her guardians, making sure she did not fall or push herself too hard. Sierra held her hand with 2 of her 4 arms, while the others carried Katie's tools. Word had spread through the station that the human who saved the Karathi ship was disembarking. Hundreds of beings from dozens of species had gathered to see her. Katie felt uncomfortable with the attention she had just been doing what needed to be done. Then something unexpected happened. A Nexus captain stepped forward, massive and imposing in his powered armor. 3 months ago, my ship was stranded in the void zones. A human freighter captain named Alex Rivera spent 4 days towing us to safety, risking her cargo deadline to save us. An Altarian merchant spoke next. Last year, pirates disabled my engines. A human engineer named Sam Thompson fixed them with spare parts and refused payment. More and more aliens began sharing stories of humans who had helped them. Humans who had taken risks that no other species would take. Humans who had solved impossible problems with simple solutions. Katie listened to all of this with growing emotion. She had always known humans were different, but she had never realized how their differences were slowly changing the galaxy. The Galactic Council patrol ship arrived 2 days later, its crew eager to inspect the impossible repairs. The captain, a distinguished Zephyron, with feathered appearance, could not hide his amazement. You are telling me this ship was held together with adhesive strips and determination. And wire. Katie added from her bed in the station medical bay. Do not forget the wire. The council wants to establish a new emergency protocol based on your methods, the captain said. They are calling it the Murphy Protocol. Katie laughed, then winced as it hurt her still healing body. You are naming jury-rigged repairs after me. You showed that advanced technology is not always the answer. Sometimes the primitive solution is the best solution. This could save thousands of lives. Zara entered with her command crew. They had come to say goodbye. The Eternal Dawn would be in repair dock for weeks, getting proper fixes for all of Katie's patches. Katie Murphy. Zara said formally, You gave us more than our lives. You gave us a new way of thinking. For this, the Karathi people are forever in your debt. Katie felt embarrassed. Just doing what any human would do, that is exactly the point, Lyra said. What any human would do is something no other species would even attempt. Sierra and the younglings presented Katie with something else they had made. It was a small model of the Eternal Dawn crafted from pieces of the actual damaged hull. It was held together with tiny strips of tape so you never forget us. Sierra said. Katie hugged the young alien, feeling tears again. How could I forget the bravest kids in the galaxy, A's? The Karathi crew departed. Katie noticed something happening on the station. Various species were visiting human shops and traders asking about duct tape and basic tools. Engineers were discussing the Murphy Protocol. Pilots were sharing stories of human rescues. 3 weeks later, when Katie was finally cleared to leave the medical bay, she found her small mining ship had been completely overhauled. Every species on the station had contributed something. The Altarians had upgraded her shields. The Nexus had reinforced her hull. The Zephyrans had improved her engines, and the Karathi had installed a new communication system with the best range available. There was a note attached, simply saying, "Thank you for showing us that impossible is just another problem to solve." Katie sat in her upgraded ship ready to return to the asteroid fields. She had calls waiting from dozens of mining companies offering her jobs, but she also had something else. A message from the Galactic Council. They wanted her to consider a new position, emergency response coordinator, teaching her methods to rescue teams across known space. She thought about it for exactly 3 seconds before accepting. After all, someone had to show the galaxy that sometimes the best solution was the one held together with duct tape and determination. 6 months later, the Murphy Protocol had been implemented across 300 systems. Emergency ships now carried duct tape as standard equipment. Engineers were being trained in what the Council called creative problem-solving, and humans were no longer seen as primitive newcomers but as the species you wanted around when everything went wrong. Katie was teaching a class of mixed-species rescue workers when she received a message. It was from Sira saying she had decided to become an engineer. She wanted to learn both the Kirathi way and the human way. Katie smiled and looked at her class of eager students. Today we are going to learn about the most important tool in emergency repairs. It is not a scanner or a laser. Cutter, it is this. She held up a roll of duct tape. The students looked confused and Katie grinned. This is going to be fun. As she began teaching, Katie thought about how one distress call had changed everything. Not just for the 43 Kirathi she had saved, but for the entire galaxy. Humans were no longer the crazy newcomers. They were the ones who answered when no one else would, the ones who fixed the unfixable, the ones who brought hope to the hopeless. And all it had taken was a stubborn woman with a toolbox and the willingness to fly 3 days through radiation, because someone needed help. The galaxy would never be the same, and Katie Murphy would not have it any other way. Years later, when historians wrote about the moment humanity truly joined the galactic community, they would not write about treaties or technology. They would write about a single human who answered a distress call and fixed an alien ship with duct tape, showing the universe that sometimes the most advanced solution was the simplest one. And somewhere in space, Katie Murphy continued to mine asteroids and answer distress calls, because that was what humans did. They helped, they fixed, they survived, and they taught others to do the same. The end came, not with a grand ceremony but with a simple truth. The galaxy had learned to be a little bit human, and humanity had finally found its place among the stars. Katie Murphy had been inside the engine room for 2 hours when the first explosion happened. It was small, just a burst of plasma from a damaged conduit, but it reminded everyone how dangerous their situation was. The ship shuddered and several more systems went offline. Get the human out of there, Lyra urged, but Zara watched the monitors as Katie simply adjusted her position and kept working. She did not even flinch. Vara observed, her voice filled with wonder. The plasma burst past within inches of her head. In the engine room, Katie was having a conversation with herself as she worked a habit that the watching aliens found both amusing and concerning. The power core was indeed heavily damaged, but she had seen worse during her years, mining asteroids in disputed space where pirates would attack and leave ships crippled. The problem was not actually that complicated. The Kirathi had built their technology to be perfect, to last forever without maintenance. But that meant, when something did break, they had no simple way to fix it. Everything required specialized tools and replacement parts that matched exact specifications. Katie did not have specialized tools or replacement parts. What she had was experience fixing broken things, with whatever was available. Growing up on the mining colonies of Mars had taught her that sometimes good enough was better than perfect. She pulled out her roll of duct tape and began wrapping a cracked power coupling. The Kirathi, who were watching through the monitors, gasped in horror. She was using primitive adhesive on their advanced technology. It was like watching someone try to fix a computer with a hammer. The younglings had gathered near the engine room door despite their mothers trying to keep them away. They pressed their faces against the transparent aluminum windows watching the strange human work. The oldest, a girl named Sira, who was 12 in human years, was translating Katie's, singing for the others. She is singing about someone named Johnny who comes marching home? Sira explained. I do not understand why this is important. Katie heard them and looked up, grinning at the young faces. Hey kids, she called out. Want to learn a human trick? The younglings chittered excitedly, until Katie held up a small piece of metal. Watch this. She placed it against a magnetic panel and used it to hold a wire in place. See, sometimes the simple solution is the best solution. Back on the bridge, Zara received another update from the patrol ship. They were now 6 days away and requesting constant updates on the situation. They seemed unable to believe that a human was actually working on Kirathi technology. Katie has been in there for 3 hours now. Lyra said she should rest. No human can maintain that level of activity without exhaustion. But even as she spoke, Katie was crawling deeper into the maintenance shafts. She had found the main problem. The magnetic field generators were not just misaligned, they were fighting each other. Each one was trying to establish dominance, creating a feedback loop that prevented the core from starting. In Kirathi training, this problem would require a complete shutdown and recalibration using specialized equipment that would take days. Katie had about 6 hours before the air ran out. She needed a different approach. She started disconnecting generators one by one. This went against everything in the Kirathi manual, but Katie was not following any manual. She was following intuition built from years of keeping broken equipment running in impossible conditions. Warning lights flashed throughout the ship as she pulled each generator offline. The crew watched in horror as their most sacred technology was being dismantled by human hands. But Zara noticed something else. The power readings were stabilizing. "What is she doing?" Vara asked. Watching the readings change, she is removing the redundancies. Lyra realized each generator is a backup for the others, but right now they are interfering with each other. She is simplifying the system. Katie found what she was looking for. The primary generator was intact but buried behind 3 backup systems. She started rerouting power directly to it, bypassing the damaged secondary systems entirely. It was dangerous running on a single generator with no backups, but it was better than not running at all. Another explosion rocked the ship. This time from the hull where the temporary patches were failing, Katie felt the ship lurch and grabbed onto a support beam to keep from being thrown into the exposed power core. "Maybe I should work faster," she muttered to herself, pulling out more duct tape. The silver tape was everywhere now, holding cables in place, sealing small cracks and even creating makeshift insulation around exposed components. On the bridge, an alarm sounded. They were down to 5 hours of air. The temperature was dropping too, as the ship lost heat to space. Ice was forming on the walls. "Captain, we should consider moving everyone to the emergency pods," Lyra suggested. "The pods only have 2 hours of air each," Zara replied. "We would only be delaying the inevitable. We trust the human or we die." Katie was now working on the final connection. She needed to create a new pathway for the power to flow from the generator to the ship's systems. The proper way would involve replacing an entire circuit board. The human way involved a lot of wire and creative thinking. She pulled cables from non-essential systems and began splicing them together. The work was delicate and her hands were starting to shake from the cold. Her breath came out in white puffs and ice was forming on her eyebrows, but she kept working. The younglings were still watching, and Sierra was describing everything to the others. "The human is connecting the red wire to the blue wire. No, wait, she is adding a yellow wire. Now she is using that tape again." Katie looked up and winked at them. "Almost done, kids. Just need one more thing." She pulled out what looked like an ancient battery from her suit. It was the backup power cell from her own life support system. She connected it to the jury-rigged system and said a small prayer to whatever deity watched over crazy humans trying to fix alien ships. Then she hit the activation switch. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a low hum filled the engine room, growing louder as the power core came online. Lights flickered throughout the ship, and suddenly the life support systems roared back to life. The crew cheered, a sound like music filling the corridors, but Katie was not done yet. She quickly began adding more tape and wire, reinforcing her hasty repairs. The system was running, but it was fragile. Zara appeared in the engine room doorway, her forearms spread wide in a gesture of gratitude. "Katie Murphy, you have saved us all." Katie climbed out of the maintenance shaft covered in grease and dust. "Maybe wait until we reach a station before celebrating. This fix is held together by tape and prayers. It will get you there, but do not push it." "How can we ever repay you?" Lyra asked. Katie was already packing up her tools. "Just remember this. Next time you hear someone say humans are too primitive to matter in the galaxy, sometimes primitive is exactly what you need."